Want to give everyone an inside look at how we run and how I run most of my pitchers that I have. Number one, I'm not really going to work with a pitcher that doesn't have a commitment to being here consistently, whether that's one time a week, whether that's 2 times a week. We're going to get an evaluation, and that's going to kind of not necessarily guide everything we do, but it's going to influence the things that we're going to do inside a session and inside a lesson. So when I first met this young lady, you can see that the first time we tested was back in November. A couple of big things I noticed, you can see in the notes, didn't produce sufficient enough force to expect consistent momentum and acceleration. So what I mean by that is generally it's a 10U kid. Even at 10U, from a developmental standpoint, we're looking at integrating an ability to land and to jump and to do so pretty efficiently. So we're looking about anywhere to close to 200% body weight that we're able to move vertically. We test this with force plates. We can see the improvements from November to this year, 193%. And we can see the improvements over here to 183%. And again, this is towards body weight. So even though she's gained 5 pounds, the formula takes into account we're gaining weight, it's still doing it towards the weight. In terms of what everything you're going to see here is done pitching wise, you're going to see an overall improvement from a 5-pitch variance here. She has hit 50 in game, so we're looking at about a 2 mile per hour improvement from a consistency standpoint. Hits 50 in a game now. Now, when we first tested her, we did some single leg stuff. We noticed when you see this red tape here, that means when she jumps and we're testing, there's a variance of 20 pounds, meaning that generally when we look at this, anything over 20 pounds is something to look at and see where she's at. We can see that our first goal here was to, okay, let's get some single leg jumping that brings some consistency. She does not have that variance anymore. These were all pretty much in line on the right leg. And then on the left leg, same thing. So we're not generally looking for just improvement here. When we see these gaps and we see these letters over here, that means there was 30-pound differences, 186, 197, 210. And then we get to here, much cleaner, much more put together from those spaces. You can see right leg inconsistent overall. So when we see instability issues like that, that's going to play out in our pitch. And so all these things influence. So the guide and that what steers us within our pitching session is, okay, we've got some single leg introductions that we need to make through plyometrics, so jump training. When we get to pitching vertical measures, we're looking at how the force plates measure her drop, her back foot peak push, and her front foot peak push. We can see here that when she first dropped all of her weight into the force plates, whether that was both legs, one leg majority, she only dropped about 218 pounds of pressure. She's over 100 pounds on that, which has allowed her to move more weight into her back foot, and ultimately here we see a drop in the front foot push, but that's a vertical measure. When we get to your front foot, we're going to see more horizontal force develop, which is why I also have a machine that checks that. When we look at that, that's where we saw some of the biggest gains. She had an average momentum of 9.7 miles per hour, and you can see that we started to teach the back foot how to accelerate with the drop, and we talked about that. No momentum gained in front foot push validates need to drop pressure consistently. Now that we're better at doing that space, her back foot gets an oscillation mark there at 20.8, and then she continues that momentum into her pitch, accelerating at 33.4 feet per second in that space. What that looks like when you look at her graphs, you can see very easily here that in this back foot, this is when she used to drop her weight into her back foot. You can see how much time it takes her to actually push with her front foot. Now, this is someone who rocked back and put all her weight back and her heel would go down. Now, the reason things changed for her is, okay, if that's the strategy we're going to use, but I also see that when I attack the ground from her jump measures that I have a lot of instability. We want to clean that up and give the athlete a better opportunity to work with what they have while they're getting better at those stability issues outside their pitch. And you can see from that time to this time, much, number one, cleaner looking peaks There's not a lot of motion everywhere. All these spikes would indicate that she's moving around on the force plates while she's trying to pitch. And what we see here is much more direct and intentional moments. There's when she drops all her weight. The majority of that weight goes to her back foot. Some is in the front. When the back foot drops weight, you see a little spike right here, meaning she's shifting her weight onto her front foot, and then she pushes through that front foot more consistently there. Those have been the things that have helped trigger her improvement in velocity and overall command and control.